Yesterday, President Trump redesignated the Iranian-backed Houthis as a terrorist organization, reversing the decision by the Biden administration. Right? This follows Trump's continued push to strengthen U.S.-Israeli relations, including lifting restrictions on arms sales to Israel, cutting funding to the terrorist compromised aid group UNRWA with the United Nations, and giving the go-ahead for deportations of U.S. visa holders linked to pro-Hamas protests. With all that happened, with all that's happening in the Middle East during the Biden administration, what message do these actions send to our allies, and why are they important? Joining me now to discuss this is Senator Steve Daines, who serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Foreign Relations Committee. He represents the state of Montana. Senator Daines, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Tony.
Now, yesterday you actually introduced the Standing Against the Houthis Aggression Act to designate the Houthis as a terrorist group. So you should be pleased with the president's actions.
Tell you what, it's been a flurry of activity with President Trump out in front, through all these executive orders and so forth, what we're doing on the floor here to move President Trump's nominations through. But I couldn't be more pleased. I introduced the bill to designate the Houthis as a foreign terror organization, and lo and behold, Trump, through the stroke of a pen, did the same thing. Look, what I'm really encouraged by, Tony, is restoring the moral clarity that was so needed by the commander-in-chief under the Biden and Harris administration. They were really handcuffing Israel. They didn't know who the good guys were and the bad guys were. Now President Trump's in office. There's moral clarity with President Trump, Marco Rubio, Elise Stefanik, our next UN ambassador. You've got Mike Huckabee, soon to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel. They understand what's going on with Israel in the Middle East. And the path forward in the Middle East is first and foremost make sure that Israel is strengthened and protected. And second, to make sure we diminish the capabilities of her adversaries, which in this case add the Houthis to that list, as well as Hamas and Hezbollah as terror organizations.
I mean, this isn't difficult. I mean, they've been firing missiles on Israel. In fact, when I was there in Israel the week before Christmas, 2 missiles were fired by the Houthis into to Israel. But talk for just a moment, Senator Daines, why this designation is important. What does it mean? Why do we designate these entities as terrorist organizations?
Well, it gives the United States government, starting with the President of the United States, our commander-in-chief, more optionality as relates to amping up necessary, whether it's force, literally preemptive, a kinetic force against a terror organization, to ramp up sanctions, to cut the flow of financial resources these organizations. It just gives, again, more tools in the tool chest that allows us to ultimately destroy these organizations. That's what we have to remember, that when Obama was president, I remember spending some time at Bagram Air Force Base there in Afghanistan, talking to our generals who were frustrated by the fact that Obama required every single kill shot against what they call jackpot targets, which would be known terrorist leaders. They had to go all the way through the Oval Office to get cleared. And by the time they got clearance from the Oval Office, they've lost their shot on a terrible bad guy. President Trump's elected. He comes in, he tells the military, here's the objective: destroy ISIS. You figure that out in the battlefield. I'm not here to run the war. I'm here to give you the tools you need to win the war. And that's exactly what happened when we took ISIS off the battlefield. Well, now they've reconstituted, certainly under Joe Biden. And you're seeing the same thing with these Iranian proxy groups of terror proxy groups of Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. This just gives the United States government now, under President Trump's leadership, more tools to destroy these adversaries.
And as you mentioned, as you referenced, this certainly sends a strong message to our ally Israel that we're standing with him. No equivocation here on that. And speaking of encouragement, I want to shift gears here. We just got about a minute and a half left. You founded the Pro-Life Caucus in the Senate. You've got to be encouraged by the fact that just less than 2 hours ago, the president signed pardons for the pro-lifers who were unjustly targeted and jailed by the Biden administration under the FACE Act. Your reaction?
Well, thank God for that. And thank God for the election in November. Thank God for these protesters that are standing for life out there being the voice for those who are voiceless. Talk about injustice, Tony, to think that these protesters literally were thrown in jail in some cases. Absolutely wrong. You think about Micah 6:8 when we talk about injustice, to walk humbly and to seek justice. Here's a great example of that, of justice being delivered to these individuals who are fighting on behalf of the unborn and now are set free. Very, very thankful for the president's action today.
Yeah, it is. Praying grandmothers are safe in America again. They can intercession is no longer grounds for an indictment, and probable cause will not be pursued by those who protect the unborn.
Tony, maybe we need to have some hats that say "Making Praying Grandmothers Safe Again." Maybe some red hats and distribute them. But it's a day to be encouraged.
It is. Senator Daines, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tony.